So, today's episode is the starter episode for our One Piece series. And it's going to be about how Luffy might be the ubermensch. And so, the ubermensch...
Superman.
Nah, bro, that's a mistranslation.
I know.
The accurate translation for ubermensch is overman. So, in the late 1800s, Friedrich Nietzsche, he was born a German, renounced his citizenship and everything. So, he lived in the Swiss Alps. So, I don't know should we call him German? I think German is the correct thing to call him. He was a German philosopher whose probably most famous thing that he said was, God is dead. Here, I got the actual full quote. I got the full quote. This quote's actually wild. So, the full quote is, God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. And who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? So basically, he's just saying that God, the Christian God, Christian faith is dead, and Western civilization is the one that killed it. And basically, it's born from the Enlightenment era telling us to question everything, and it gave rise to atheism. And so he believed with the death of God, humanity needed a new moral framework to work with. And in his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he outlines, using the great sage Zarathustra, what he believes is the answer to this. And it's the overman, or ubermensch, which is basically, he describes it as an evolution humanity needs to go through to be able to conceptualize our own goals, or not goals, but our own moral values. They're no longer the objective moral values from Christianity that was before, but something completely new that's never been seen before, sort of thing. He thought Christianity was, I guess for lack of a better term, shackles.
Whew.
And that the correct way forward was for an ubermensch to come forth and create new values for everybody.
Interesting.
And so, I believe that Monkey D Luffy, the main character for Ichiro's Oda, we can't really call it a magnum opus if it's his only work. So, I guess we're just gonna call it.
One Piece is not his only work.
What? There's like proto One Piece.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, like, I know it's not One Piece, but it's just it's like, proto One Piece is like the best way to put it. It's basically the thing that became One Piece, isn't it? Is my understanding. Is his original work.
I know he dropped Monsters, which was the story of Ryuma, the skeletal swordsman in Thriller Bark. That was like a one shot at first, but it talked about like that. So that's one of the earliest works I know. I know he made a lot of one shots and stuff first that I'm not too familiar with.
Then I guess we can call it his magnum opus, but we believe that Luffy is the ubermensch that Friedrich Nietzsche spoke about in his work.
I'm talking about that, like, the comparisons are pretty freaking specific. Like, one thing, for instance, reading the book, the Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I know he uses a lot of sea references. Like, a lot of sea references. Like, one of my quotes, which is one of the things that got me on this thing, which was, he said in the book, a polluted stream is man. One must be a sea to receive a polluted stream without becoming impure. though I teach you the Superman, which I think he pronounced it Uberman, like in there. It's like kind of weird. But though I teach you the Superman, he is that C. And I think in this argument, we'll be talking about Luffy being that C. And a lot of setup coming out into that.
Well, so the ubermensch is supposed to have an unstoppable force of will. Mm-hmm. And from day one, Luffy, even when he was a little kid, like when you learn about him growing up in the mountains with Sabo and Ace, like he 100% is Himothy. Also, I think Himothy should be another title for Ubermensch. Just say it. Just putting that out there.
If we had a modern day term for the Ubermensch, is Himothy Himminson.
Like the real Himothy. But with the Ubermensch, he outlines that he goes through a metamorphosis, and he goes from the man before, to a camel, which I know it sounds weird, but you gotta hear him out, to a lion, and then to a child. And
sounds weird. Hear us out.
Luffy's journey is eerily similar, because the camel is a beast of burden, so he has to take so the Ubermensch, when he's the camel, has to take his dream and carry it on his back, and along with the dreams of others, and carry it forward. So Luffy's entire thing is he wants to be the king of the pirates. That's his dream. That's what he wants. So all of his crewmates that join, their dreams get to achieve their dreams if they follow Luffy. So he takes his dream their dreams on his back.
And it's not just their dreams too, because one thing Nietzsche spoke about, it's not even just their dreams, but taking on the heavier burdens, when a lot of times those heavier burdens don't get passed off to the people that are under him. Like, taking the load, when something bad is happening, he's one of the first people to get in front of him and say, hey, I'm going to take this on for y'all. Or when there's a strong guy coming in, anytime they come into the show, he takes the strongest guy, like no questions asked, like every time. And not only that,
Aeneas Lobby, or I think I'm butchered the name, but when he goes to save Nico, he's like, you can't give up on yourself. You gotta you gotta find your dream. And if I achieve my dream, you achieve your dream, sort of thing.
And he's also like, he takes on a heavy burden for like the crew mentally too, because like even in that same arc in Enies Lobby, Nico Robin had just given up. Like, and Luffy, knowing her dream, knowing what she wants to do, it's almost like he doesn't have to say too many things to bury down her throat. He already knows what she believes. She already knows what she believes. So the idea, just tell me you want to live, because we both know you want to live. Like, I know you want to live, and Nico Robin, you know you want to live. Tell me you want to live. And it's like, it's understood that he is going to fight for that reason, for that dream of hers. No questions asked. Because that's his friend. That's who's following him. And that's literally a big part of the camel ideology in Nietzsche's three metamorphoses.
Yeah, he's basically just supposed to carry the load. Because camels are beasts of burdens. They carry the load for people to get across a treacherous land.
Yep.
And Luffy's that he, like, if you also want to, like, go for the little tongue-in-cheek part, he literally carries the hope of a sandy nation, like a desert nation, on his back, because he knows that helping these people help him achieve his dream of becoming king of the pirates.
Yep.
Like, it's not just a normal, just like, I'm gonna help him sort of thing. It's weird because he doesn't help him for the normal reason people help. Like, Luffy doesn't want to be a good guy. He just wants to live to his ideal moral.
Yep.
Like, he doesn't care, like,
he just wants freedom.
Yeah, that's all but it's not, he doesn't just want freedom, remember? He wants everyone to be free. Like, because to him, freedom and life are the highest priority to him. That's why he doesn't kill people. And he doesn't let his crew kill people.
That actually bleeds too in a part of the Uberman that he spoke on, because Let me see if I can find the quote, because I know he spoke upon a lot of things. When it comes down, he doesn't need to be a part of the herd, and he doesn't want to be a grave digger. So like, he doesn't want to be a part of the crowd that everybody else is trying to be a part of, and he's also not out here to kill people. He's not a grave digger. He's not filling graveyards. He's just trying to get to his ideal moral standard of living without having to follow what anyone else tells him to do, or have to step on people's back or kill them to help them understand, because his idea of freedom, just like how Corrupted said, it's for everybody, not just himself. So even loving his enemies in which they despise him, even, putting time into completing this task, even though it may not fully benefit him specifically, which we see a lot of that, especially in the earlies of One Piece, and even heavier in the later stages in the New World and stuff. Like, everything Luffy is doing, it's literally just, we say it's the Uberman and what it needs to be, but like, the work itself doesn't explicitly say that, and you'd have to like do this dive and like do these comparisons to understand.
But also, like, I started rewatching from the beginning. So for this, we're gonna watch this episode. We're only gonna cover about 10, but I think for the rest of them, we'll cover 25 at a time. That way, it doesn't take 3 years to do this.
Right.
But I was watching it because I hadn't seen the beginning in forever. And with Kobe, he meets Kobe for the first time, and he's just like, "You're a moron."
Yeah.
And then he's just like, "You're a moron and a coward." Like,
yeah,
he
like
finds out that he refuses to follow his dream, and he's also too scared to follow his dream. That's another thing. The ubermensch is all about accomplishing his dream. It's all about seizing life and accomplishing what you want to accomplish. Like, that's like the entire thing of the ubermensch is like, he's the antithesis, I guess.
Antitheist.
No. Thesis. That antithesis is actually, that's the correct way to say it. Of people that are too scared to do what they want to do and what they need to do.
And that's literally Kobe. Like, in a whole nutshell. Like, how you a dude and you want to be a Marine, you let yourself get captured by pirates. And for Luffy hearing that, because he meets him in the barrel that first time, and that, like you said, calls him a moron, but at the same time, he's like, you're a moron and you're a coward, so which is worse? And he tells him about his dream. You want to be a Marine. Okay, be a Marine. It's just that simple. Like, he isn't, like, putting any extra, like, swirls on it. He's not putting any extra criteria on it. It's just that simple. You want to be a Marine? Go be a Marine.
And then, to get back to the camel part, so Luffy, he continuously takes up people's dream to accomplish his dream. Like, when he meets Frankie's dream is to his ship, like, isn't it, like, it's his dream to make the greatest pirate ship ever. And isn't that his exact dream? He wants to
build the greatest vessel to ever sail the sea.
Not necessarily. But if your ship is the king of the pirate ship, then you technically are the greatest shipwright ever. Just like through process of the greatest person to ever sail the seas is on my boat, that automatically, like, from a logical extrapolation, that would make him achieve his dream.
Exactly.
And then Sanji wants to see the all blue, which you would see if you became the king of the pirates. So being with Luffy will accomplish his dream.
And even when you look at it, like we take it just from where we're at right now with Kobe, like, you see Luffy gets on Alvida's ship. He literally tells Kobe, you want to be a Marine, go be a Marine. And it's like, he's so scared of Alvida. He's like, I don't even want to go against her. And Luffy's like, okay, who's Alvida? You're fat, you're ugly. She's telling everybody she's beautiful. You're fat and you're ugly. And they proceed to have that fight. And then in that fight, Kobe sees Luffy as a guy who's like, he wants to be king of the pirates. Well, here's a pirate, and he's going against this pirate. Like, first time seeing is like, he's not even afraid, doesn't even show any fear. Like, that was another thing that Nietzsche, like, talked about, was him taking on these mantles without having any kind of complaints, having any kind of fears. He just goes, does it, takes whatever happens after it, and goes with it after that. Like, Kobe's first real idea of seeing somebody chasing his dream was one of the first things we see first.
Yeah, and it inspires him to chase his dream.
Yep.
And then Chopper, his dream is to be
World-renowned doctor.
I thought it was the world's greatest doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if he's the doctor for the person that's in the most danger of like all the time, then it doesn't make him the greatest doctor by default, but it makes him a great doctor, so it puts him one step closer to achieving his dream. Nami wants to chart the entire planet.
Of course, traveling around the sea is the king of the pirates' dream. That's what they have to do in order to become king of the pirates.
If Luffy gets his dream, she probably accomplishes hers.
Usopp wanted to be the greatest warrior ever. I think his is he just wants to be a great warrior. I don't think he says greatest ever. I could be wrong.
I thought it was just like he just no longer wants to be a coward. It's like his whole thing. Like he doesn't say it outright.
That's linked to him being one of the greatest warriors because a great warrior's brave. They're honest.
He wants to be the opposite of what he is.
Yeah,
and
currently.
if he joins Luffy, he'll achieve it. Like if he helps Luffy become king of the pirates, he's no longer a lying sack of shit coward that he is when we meet him. Cause let's be real, that's what he is. And when he tries to mutiny, he does something similar. And then there's one more main one that I miss, Zoro. I got lost like he did, my bad.
Yeah, that boy be getting lost, but he damn sure ain't got lost on that dream of being the world's greatest swordsman.
He wants to be the world's greatest swordsman. If you're the right-hand man of the strongest pirate, odds are you're the greatest swordsman, especially since Luffy's not a swordsman. And so he takes all their dreams and his own on his back, and like a camel, pulls that load or carries that load through the desert, which is life. And then, so that's the camel. And then as the camel, the camel has to die so that he can become the lion, and impelled down in Marineford would be the death of the camel, because he like journeys into the underworld, almost dies against Magellan. I can't. How do you say the dude that looks like Rocky Horror Picture Show's name? Ivankov, right? Ivankov. That's it.
A lot of people just say Ivan if it's too hard.
It's gonna take at least 5 years off your life. I think is the.
Something
it
like
takes
that.
at least 5 years to use the hormone treatment off of his life. And then he comes back out of the depths of that hell, and then has to watch his best friend die because he wasn't strong enough to do anything about it.
Which, yeah, because by definition, it would be best friend because they're not blood related, but their connection is so deep that they call it brotherly. The closest person to him
alive.
Yeah, closest person to him alive.
So it's like they have a bond that like transcends being best friends.
And that's another thing, because him going into the depths of hell for his best friend to pull him out of his own sorrows, his own despair. That was really camel-ish, but it's the death of the camel, because it's in these arcs is which we learn that Luffy is a driving force like a lion. He can be that driving force like a lion. And from Enies Lobby to Marineford, we in Marineford we see how much of a force he can be, to where one of the 4 emperors of the sea in Whitebeard, he goes to the number one enemy of the pirates and the Marines. I'm talking about to their home base, and says, "You're not killing my friend. And I don't care what y'all are going to do. You're not killing my friend." And Whitebeard, being such a real like icon for pirates and everybody at that time, puts his trust and his like well-being in the hands of this pirate that he just met.
You could also argue that it is the closest person to being the ubermensch at that time.
Yeah, because Whitebeard is called the strongest man in the world at that time. So 100%. He literally at that point in time, if
he's the closest one to achieving the title of Overman.
If they would have ended One Piece at Marineford, we would be talking about Whitebeard being Overman and not Luffy.
But then he realizes that it's not enough. Luffy realizes that it's not just enough to be able to carry it. carry that dream, he must be strong enough to defeat the dreams of those that come before him.
Yup.
And so he realized that he needs the fangs and claws. I think even Riley says something about him being... Rayleigh says something about him at the end of the time skip. He says something about him being a beast. I can't remember the exact quote, but he says something about him being like, can you imagine if he actually tames the beast or whatever?
Yeah. Right when he tells them, right when they're about to go off, and they go to that flashback that Rayleigh, in his head when he was seeing Luffy train, he imagines what happens if he actually tames the beast.
Yeah.
And metaphorically, the beast,
that's him becoming the
lion. Yeah, he's theoretically or metaphorically, but taming the beast in himself to become the beast that he needs to be.
Yeah, to become the lion.
Because real talk, anybody who watches One Piece know that without Rayleigh's training, he don't become that beast. So Rayleigh giving Luffy that training, he's the one who ushered Luffy into that next stage, because he himself had the knowledge, he had the prowess, he had the status. It was like you couldn't have had anybody else train Luffy besides the right hand to the king of the pirates. Like, that's just poetic at that point. But
he's being trained to be the ubermensch,
and
by the closest person.
I actually think that from the point in which he leaves in Sabaody Part 2 all the way up until like Whole Cake is literally just him learning to be the lion, or exhibiting that he's the lion.
He's honing his claws and fangs.
Yeah, that's
like he's the lion, but he's the lion, but he doesn't understand his own strength. Basically, like he has to slowly, or maybe it's not that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that for his will and dream to go forward, he has to crush all those other dreams that are worse than his.
Yeah, so that time it would be
and Horty Jones.
Yeah, Fishman would be Horty Jones of his dream of hating humans and becoming the only. Next would be Caesar Clown and his dream of becoming like the world's destructive scientist, or his dream would be he would wants to see that he's better than Vegapunk. So in his way of going about it, it's basically showing that he can make a doomsday weapon better than Vegapunk. Dressrosa would be Doflamingo, which his dream of being basically the king of Dressrosa, the underworld king of basically the new world, and Luffy stops that. Then we get to Big Mom, who she's just the Kaido, before Kaido, she's basically little Kaido, like this person in this area in which I have to get into. So he's trying to get into defeating the Emperor, so he goes at Big Mom first, which of course it was for Sanji, but like story wise and plot wise, we see that it was bigger than just going to Sanji.
For the sake of the metaphor.
Yeah, for the sake of the metaphor, it was bigger than just going there for Sanji. He had to learn the power of a emperor, which was end up being Big Mom, which is why Big Mom didn't get finished in Whole Cake. She got finished in Wano.
An emperor is just a king of more than a king, and the lion is the king of the jungle. So he's basically becoming more of the lion.
Yep.
And then when he gets to Wano, he has to fight Kaido, and Kaido is, they call it, it's like the sea serpent fruit, but motherfuckers are dragon.
Fish fruit model Azure dragon. We know it's a dragon.
He's dragon.
They could have kept that fish part to themselves. But
what's crazy though is that the lion has to fight a dragon called Thou Shalt, and on his glistening scales is every moral value of the world.
Which is why Kaido, it makes sense why Kaido's so power hungry in of himself, because that's just the world that they're living. He understands power is above everything. But
it's not just, he's also the gatekeeper to creating more value.
Yeah.
And since he's the strongest, or he might not, Shanks might secretly be stronger, but as far as we know, he's the strongest of the, so he's at the height of the thing that prevents you from going higher.
Yes.
So he's the thing that prevents, you have to go through him to get higher. So he's a lot like Thou Shalt. And the lion, is not supposed to beat the dragon thou shalt, according to Nietzsche. The lion's just supposed to be able to impose his will and then lose, because the lion is just supposed to destroy the previous morals and not create any new ones. He's just supposed to destroy them. So he's actually supposed to lose to the dragon thou shalt, just like Luffy does. Luffy loses to Kaido, and then losing to Kaido, push comes to shove, he unlocks Gear 5. And he's got a sense of childlike wonder in creation, which goes into Nietzsche. The third metamorphosis is the child, because the child will have the imagination and creativity to create the new morals. So Gear 5 is basically just... his power is literally imagination. Like, if he thinks it can be rubber, it's rubber.
But because you said a lot of interesting things when you talked about like Kaido being this force, this gatekeeper that stops everybody from getting there, because we see in the conversations between him and Big Mom how they basically talk like, oh, we were supposed to go get the One Piece. Oh, I thought you were always supposed to get the One Piece. And then as soon as it makes sense, because as soon as Kaido goes down, Shanks now says it's time to go get the One Piece. So yes, Shanks would be stronger. I do definitely believe that. But just like how Kaido, he didn't go for the One Piece while Kaido and Big Mom were still up. So that's where the gatekeeper part to me comes in heavily. And yes, 100%. Soon, everyone knows. Soon as Luffy goes in Gear 5, all you think about Looney Tunes, cartoons, just how childish he's acting. Yeah, one of the greatest. I love Tom and Jerry. But literally, like in Nietzsche's version of the child is basically Goofy. You know, he looks at the world in different. Obviously, at this point looks at the world in a different view than literally probably 90% of the rest of the world. And everything he's doing now is literally just whatever he wants. Like, even Luffy's power in Gear 5, it's literally freedom. He always described it as, that's when I'm free. Like, when they got to Egghead and Bonnie asked him, what's up with your wanted post? Oh, that's just how I fight when I'm free. And it all goes all the way back to freedom being Luffy's number one push.
Yes, it's his core value. It's his I don't want to say it's his identity, but it's pretty close. But so, and then for the metaphor, there's something that's the opposite of the Overman that Nietzsche calls the last man, and it's basically just a human that is obsessed with hedonistic tendencies and avoiding pain. And that sounds a lot like the Celestial Dragons. Like, that's all they do. Like, they're just out for their fun and everyone else's dismay. They're just trying to get themselves to have the most fun and pleasure as possible, and they don't care who they hurt
at all.
And they don't add anything of value. They just happen to be rich because of the previous people made their life so easy. And they take no risks or anything.
Nope.
Mainly because they can't take risks, because if you attack them, you become infinitely wanted.
I'm talking about as soon as you attack any of them, they send in admirals and warships. Like, I'm talking about even if you thump them, like they literally look at themselves like the top of everything, only because that they quote unquote have founders' blood, or they were the ones that helped found the original country, which we're learning now that that's the original country. They usurped it from the people who were actually in charge before. But we definitely seeing how the Celestial Dragons just don't care about people. They don't care about values. All they care about what they want, what's shiny to them, they're gonna have it. And it's not even anything for a reason. It's like, oh, hey, a mermaid, I've never seen a mermaid before, I want her. Or, hey, this dude's a big old guy who just takes hits, we want him. I'm talking about Kuma. Like, they called him the indestructible slave, and the only reason they want him because they could hit him as much as they want, and he would never show any signs of pain or any sign of animosity or anything. He won't complain. And just in that alone, like, you just see how bad these people are. Like, You want a slave that's indestructible, so when you hit him, he doesn't whelp. Okay, celestial dragons. I'm glad Luffy punched one of y'all.
Man, that punch is so therapeutic. But they're basically they are what humans become if they lose their drive for life, basically. Like, the celestial dragons don't really have any drive for life. They're just along for the ride because they can get fun out of it.
And it's crazy because you said they don't even want to fight or anything. They've lost their connection to life so much that once theirs is threatened, they look for someone else to protect it. Like when the Revolutionary Army first did their raid on the Reverie to pull Kuma out, you see in the panels that all this chaos happening around them, explosions, war, and what the celestial dragons telling the Marines, protect us. You're supposed to protect our life. If they harm a hair on our head, we'll have your job or we'll have your life. Like, bro, run. Like, you see all these explosions going on around you. The first thing you gonna say is, Admiral, protect me? No. You would expect someone would have some kind of want for their own life to where they at least run out of the way. And that's not even the option for them, to run out of the way. They want the admirals to jump in front of them and take all the bullets instead of getting themselves to safety. So again, not even caring about the admiral's safety, only caring about their own, which at that point is literally irrelevant. Like the whole freaking Castle Marie Joie is getting raided and you're worried about you. Just get out of the way.
Yeah. Like they're nihilistic, but not in the usual definition of nihilist. Like, they hate life in the sense of they hate all that life has to offer. They only like the parts that gratify that itch that they have in the moment.
Yep.
And that's what the ubermensch is supposed to be, an answer or an antidote to the nihilism caused by the death of God. And I think the reason that the celestial dragons are like that is, if this gets proven right later on, I'm gonna feel like such a genius. But my theory is the celestial dragons' ancestors killed the ideal of the One Piece world in the Void Century. So whether that be a god or the highest value or the most important thing to the people, I think they destroyed that to put themselves in power, and so they became nihilistic to cope with the fact that they destroyed the ability for people to be happy.
Everything now we're starting to see in the later chapters are definitely pointing to that. How it's now been said that the world government is made of the 20 kingdoms who came together during the Void Century, and it's starting to look like it was just because that they didn't like who was in power before. It's really starting to look like that all they wanted to do was kill off and put their own ideologies in, which end up becoming nihilistic because of the person that they ended up taking off. And I 100% support it, man. It's really starting to look like that because it makes sense when you see all these, like the celestial dragons and how they believe. It had to be they believe this because the person in power before believed the opposite. And seeing all these guys just come in, they're like, oh, we're the founders and we're the...
Real quick to touch on that point where you said they believe the opposite. So another big thing about Nietzsche's writings is he had a thing that he called slave and master morality.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, the slave morality is, or the master morality is all about like power, but he doesn't call power like the traditional thing of power. It's like your ability to see life and all that it offers. It's like, he's not talking about like the power to control people, because he thinks if you want to subjugate people that you're actually weak because you have no actual power.
Yep.
But so his entire thing is that slave morality will lead you to nihilistic tendencies, and that's exactly what happened. So clearly someone had the quote-unquote master morality, where it was all about power and justice and stuff like that. Well, not justice, but the ability to have power and ruling with that power, not like the subjugating people stuff, but there's this thing called slave morality, which is just you venerate things that are the opposite of slave morality, or not the slave morality venerates things that are the opposite of master morality, and that would be what you just said. They want to be the opposite of the world before. And then slave morality leads you to being nihilistic, according to Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like he was right, because slave morality teaches you to, like, pity those that you shouldn't pity and stuff like that, which makes you pity yourself, which makes you nihilistic and stuff like that. So it just ties back into maybe Nietzsche predicted the One Piece back in the 1800s.
I definitely believe it, because seeing like the whole slave morality thing, we see that throughout the entirety of One Piece. Just seeing how, you know, you have the admirals, the fleet admiral end up having the actual admirals and the Marines below them. Bro, the Marines below them, we see like in Egghead, a lot of those guys don't even want to be around once Saturn's there. But they're there because that's their job and that's what they had to do. You look at other pirate groups, like back in the beginning, just like Alvida, she did not care about her crew in that way. She only used them to boost her own selfish ego about her being beautiful. When, of course, we see the first time we see Alvida, she's fat, she's ugly. I mean, y'all wouldn't take her home to your mom. I already know it. Then you see, I think right after that is Kuro. Kuro just being a guy, he's using his status to try to get bigger fortune, and his crew only comes up and just be pawns.
Well, if everyone whose crew doesn't matter is not a prospective member or a prospective ubermensch candidate, but everyone that cares about their crew is.
Yes.
Like, that's another thing. It's like, so the pirates, for the metaphor, they would all be people attempting the metamorphosis
Right.
to ubermensch, but Luffy's the only one that gets to fit, like, that's actually, like, there, like actually completing it. Well, Shanks might have completed it a long time ago. We just don't know enough, just because, like, he's clearly probably the strongest person, or at least pirate wise, and been the strongest pirate for a long time. We just don't know, because, like, when he played around with fucking what's his name, Kizaru, when we were just like, oh yeah, he's one of the strongest Marines ever, and then fucking Shanks just plays with him. We're just like, yeah, dude, like, that shit's not gonna work with me. Like, he doesn't even threaten him. He just shows him that none of his power matters. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to think. You talking about Marineford?
Not a Marineford. It's much later, but it's
Green Bull, Wano.
I can't remember where it is, but Kizaru's like thinks that he has Shanks on the ropes.
Kizaru doesn't fight Shanks.
No.
The only admiral that has.
No. Look, they don't fight. He like tries to fight Shanks, and then Shanks shows him that he's so far ahead of him that Kizaru has no chance of fighting him.
You have to be talking about Marineford then.
That's not Marineford, because Marineford, they're surrounded by ice. This time they're not surrounded by ice.
Shanks showed up in Marineford, and he didn't show up again until like Wano.
It might have been in Wano. I can't remember where it was.
Because that was Green Bull.
It might be that. I can't remember what it is.
Green Bull. Okay, so in the Wano, the Wi-Fi hockey. The Wi-Fi hockey is what they're calling it now. Because he was on the ship coming in. Green Bull never saw Shanks. He just knows it was Shanks by his hockey, because Green Bull was fighting Momonosuke and the other 9 scabbards. And righteously, he was beating the mess out those folks. Like, he really was beating them up. And Shanks being on the way to Wano, he was supposed to go there. It said he was looking for Blackbeard. But he ended up like feeling the hockey of Green Bull there, and he's like, oh, it's a foreign hockey. And then he literally just rips a little bit of his sword, literally puts out enough conquerors so I can knock out his own crew, but sends like a streak of it to Green Bull, who was miles away, and he gets freaking wrecked by it. And it's like, Shanks, red hair pirates, what are y'all doing here? Yeah, I can't fight y'all right now. I'm not supposed to fight y'all right now. Yeah, I'm out of here. I don't want no smoke with red hair.
But
I'm out of here.
The scene I'm thinking about is like Kizaru like turns on the light and beams up, and then Shanks jumps up and sees him and like gives him this funny look, like, you can't do shit here. It doesn't matter.
Bro, that might be a movie.
It might be a movie.
It might be a movie.
Yeah, but I remember it's just like he leaves Kizaru fucking shook.
No, I think that's film red. I think that's filmed.
But
right.
like Kizaru makes a massive explosion and then turns into light and flies up because I think he's about to do his the attack that's named after the Buddhist thing on somebody.
Yasuke no Magatama.
I think he's about to do, and then Shanks just jumps up next to him, using his observation haki to see where he's gonna be, and he just looks at him funny. And Kizaru's like fucking shook, like
because
Kizaru, like you can tell Kizaru knows that he does not stand a fucking chance when that happens.
Because Shanks, I know it was said that one of Shanks' canon like hockey abilities is that he can negate someone else's observation hockey that's around him. So imagine you being one of the observation hockey being one of the things you use to fight all the time, and you're trying to get one up on Shanks. He can negate observation hockey, so you'll never get one up on him.
Yeah, but so like I said, we don't know if Shanks went through the metamorphosis or not, but all the other pirates that are there, because Whitebeard would have stopped his metamorphosis at the lion, because he's just a lion through and through.
Yep.
He's still a lion. Like he's even trying to tear down the symbol of the morals of the world government.
Yeah.
When he dies. So all the other pirates in the show are they're prospective candidates for becoming the Overmen. But it looks like Luffy's the closest to actually making it. And then the Marines would be, in the metaphor, would be parts of human nature that want to become the last man. Because like part of our nature is we just want life to be easier. We don't want to have to like suffer through all of the shit all the time. And they're the things that protect
dragons
us.
Would be like the biggest, like obvious, like example of that, because they're the metaphorical equivalent to the last man. Marines being want to become the last man, and we see a lot of like Doflamingo wanting to become the last man because he wanted to be a celestial dragon. In Egghead, we got York, one of the satellites for Vegapunk. Everything she did, she wants to be the last man because she wants to be a celestial dragon. It's like celestial dragons point to a life in which I think it's like
it's just hedonistic
tendencies after another, and it looks easier for like anyone looking in to be. If you have opportunity to be a celestial dragon, they would probably take it. Versus like Luffy having an opportunity to become king of the pirates, ain't too many people had that opportunity or even want to do that.
An overwhelming force of will, and it's even like Luffy was born with an indomitable force of will, and that's just conquers hockey.
Yeah,
which is funny, like that. There's literally just like a biological deterministic. If you have a chance to become the ubermensch, which might be how it is in real life too. To like having a force of will, but if you have conquerors hockey, you have an unquenchable spirit. Like
you can't satisfy that spirit with just simple stuff.
Also, I didn't like Oda probably didn't like plan it from the beginning, but he clearly had something along the lines of conquerors hockey planned out from like episode 3. Because in the flashback with Shanks, where he uses, we know it's Conqueror's hockey now, but he uses it on the monster that takes his arm.
Yep,
but it's still weird that he let it take its arm. Like it feels sort of like, I wonder if there's a reason that like it might be later on, like for the metaphor, that the reason he took his arm is because he knew without his arm he could not be what he needed to be. Because Mihawk seems to think that it nerfed him and made him not worth fighting anymore, but he's still clearly the strongest.
I definitely
or at least on
that.
Kaido's level.
I definitely believe that because when you think about it, like before Shanks lost his arm, he was big rival to Mihawk, big rival. And Mihawk coming to him, he thought that he was lesser of a warrior for losing his arm. And he tells Mihawk, he said, "Oh, this is just an arm. You don't know the reason I lost it now, but you should know later." And seeing that, like, he probably thought that just sword fighting alone probably wasn't enough to get him where he needed to go. And him losing that arm, I mean, his hockey was out of this world when it comes back when Luffy, like, gets to the point where he's a good pirate and stuff. Like, Shanks' hockey is out of this world. We see that. Like, he's compared to Roger. He's compared to, like, all these people who didn't have devil fruits and are just overpowered now. Like Shanks losing that arm probably made his hockey stronger. I would go with that. Like
Or-
just off the surface, not even going deep. Just
Also, it just occurred to me, what if Shanks did complete his transformation to ubermensch? Because remember, he sees the world differently than every other pirate.
yeah, because he's the one that made Luffy
He has like an almost childlike wonder when it comes to piratehood, like how he views it. Like the Mountain Bandit shows up in episode 3. I think it's either episode 3 or 4. They show up and he's just like he just laughs them off because they really don't matter. But you see, like when he meets Mihawk again, like a few episodes later, I think it's like 10 episodes later, he's just sitting there laughing over the fact that should be terrible, like the fact that their ship's like messed up or whatever, but he's just laughing, acting like a kid. So he could have went through the entire thing, and we just don't see how he became it, because it's heavily implied that he's stronger than Kaido. So that would be him as the lion could have fought against that shout and everything. And also, he has 3 scratch marks on his eye. That could easily been from like a cat, or if it turns out it's from Kaido, bro.
no, it's from Blackbeard.
Oh, it's from Blackbeard.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the reason he was looking, because when he first
then that makes it that actually hella works too.
Yeah, because think about it. Okay, so you remember when we first meet Whitebeard is when Shanks is talking to him about Blackbeard, and he tells him like, yeah, these scars on my face, I'm looking for your guy, and he tells him that, yeah, we're looking for him too, but you know, we're not like prioritizing finding him, is what it seems like. And Shanks, of course, conquers Haki's whole crew, and him and Whitebeard almost get into that scrap, but that was off screen. We didn't see how that resolved. But yeah, Blackbeard was the one that gave him those 3 scars, and being Blackbeard, you see, I don't know if you know, but in Egghead now, you know, Blackbeard's, he's pretty much getting like all of his pieces together. Like,
well, we don't want to get into that rabbit hole because we just
later.
need to fit. But it's
That's
just
for later.
Shanks could have went through. It's just that Shanks could also be, and then him and Luffy will eventually go.
And I would actually love to hear Shanks' backstory, like fully, like what made him like be a part of Roger Pirates and what he actually did after he left Roger Pirates. That would be,
because remember, Rogers story. Is like the first person that started, like was like the first person that's like not a piece of shit. Like Roger started the whole like, just because we're pirates doesn't mean we're a piece of shit, or like the whole, just because I'm a villain doesn't mean I'm a monster.
And it's crazy because when you mentioned that, Nietzsche actually did mention stuff like that, which I thought that was interesting, because it says, shall not be herds or the herdsman or the hound. He said a robber he was called by the herd, but they called themselves good and just, the lawbreakers. And he went on to say the lawbreaker is the creator. So they always, of course, pirates are always viewed as, menaces to society. They're viewed as just there to cause harm. Most of them are.
But there's a select few that are just there.
The good and just.
It's not necessarily that they're good and just. It's just they're not necessarily because like Blackbeard's not good and just, but he also doesn't try to he doesn't try to subjugate people just to subjugate them, like in the towns that he goes to and stuff.
Right.
But like he's not good and just, so it's not that they're good and just. It's that there are pirates that are just fundamentally opposed to the Celestial Dragons, and since everyone is convinced the Celestial Dragons are good people because they happen to be at the top.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely see that.
So it's all because everyone, like, if everyone could have the easy life where they just got to do hedonistic things all the time and chill, like, everyone thinks they want that, but it slowly drives you to nihilism. And the Celestial Dragons are a good example of that. They need, like, bigger and better stupid shit
all the time
to keep from needing to blow their brains out.
It's like once they got Kuma, it's like that slave wasn't enough for you. It's like now you need more. And we're starting to see just how nihilistic and just how much they don't care when we start getting into like, you know, what they do and what they have done. Like, of course, there's the theory going around that they did the same thing to Lucia that they did to God Valley. And I know up in the flashback for God Valley that we see the Celestial Dragons, which I don't know if you knew this, but Celestial Dragons on God Valley did this like rabbit hunt in which they would, because it's for all the races of people, they call them all to God Valley just to basically have a hunt. Had people that they selected as the hunters who would basically go and kill these other races for points. So that's like probably one of the most heinous things we've seen them do as of late, because it really was for nothing. Like, we really saw them do it just for their own sport. Even Saint Figurlin, who's, we think from the film Red, might be some relation to Shanks. We saw him literally treating it like a game. Like, oh, he had like this little thing he did that was like a penalty. I don't remember if he like killed someone who he wasn't supposed to kill yet because the game didn't start. They literally looked at it as like, oh, we're gonna start you off at a 10,000 point deficit. Oh, okay. And he just goes out, and as soon as it starts, just kills him up. Okay, I'm back on like even terms now. It's up to y'all to kind of, you know, go ahead of me now. And it's just like they see everything like that as a game. Like, they playing with these people's lives just for their own sport, for prizes, which of course they were good prizes. We'll get into that later, but
super hedonistic.
Yeah, like, super hedonistic. Like, it really just for their own pleasure is why they did it. And we kind of see God Valley just being wiped off the earth somehow. Like I say, we think like, it's probably from what Emu did to Lelucia, but
like the Oxford definition of hedonistic is engaged in the pursuit of pleasure or essentially self-indulgent. That's exactly what they are. They're
down to a T.
They're hedonistic, mentally like dejected, that don't care about anything except for their next fix of dopamine. Like, that's all they care about. They just can't, like, that's like we see at the first time at Saba Odi, the Celestial Dragon show up. He's like, he makes his slave do the weirdest things, like crawl like that, just so people look at him when he crawls down, as the slave crawls down the street. Like, he's just looking for that next fix. They're all just looking for that next fix of attention or dopamine. Like, they just want a little bit of pleasure, or not a little. They want as much pleasure as they can possibly get. And so they'll do anything to get it, and they'll go through crazier and crazier means to do it. But every time they do something like that, they get a little more nihilistic.
Mm-hmm. And
over time, they'll eventually just get to where they have no reason to live anymore. But Luffy is the opposite of that. Luffy just, he wants life unfettered by the coils of nothingness. Like,
and that's crazy because, like, a good example of that literally is Wano. Like, when you see Luffy come into Wano, and it was like everybody there, the people, like the common people, don't eat really. They drink polluted water, and they're not allowed really to do, like, the one day that they can have fun and not work throughout the year is the Light Festival. That's the only day in an entire year that they can have any kind of fun, not work. They can eat what they want, they can drink what they want, is the Light Festival.
Also, another thing about Wano that's crazy that a bunch of people don't talk about, it's for the, like, lion metamorphosis, it's where the lion dies and the child is born, that people don't think about. Wano is the resting place of Pluton.
Mm-hmm.
And Pluto is the Roman name for Hades. So it's literally the realm of the god of the underworld. So Wano is metaphorically the place where you go when you die.
And think about it. Think about it for the story. Wano was not affiliated with the world government. They didn't get any kind of news about the outside. You look at an underworld, of course, wouldn't know anything about the top world. You look at how Luffy goes in there, and it's like while they're in there, the world outside of them changes so drastically. Like, that's why out of Wano, you get this whole exposition dump of, like, all this stuff that had happened while they were there. And just how Luffy technically really does die in Wano. Like,
part of him dies. The part of him that wasn't strong enough to achieve.
Yeah.
So because the lion's not strong enough to defeat Thou Shalt, he dies and is born again as the child in Gear 5.
And I think what the part that you probably could say that he died was when the first time he fights Kaido. When Kaido first shows up in the dragon, he shoots the castle.
Him dying would be when he's laying there and you hear like the drums of.
No, I'm talking about like before, like what sets it all up. Because you gotta think. Once you go to Wano, his crew dies because that's why Kaido shoots the mountain. He thinks his crew dies while he runs to go fight Kaido. Kaido, of course, one shots him with Thunder Baku, and then he literally after that gets locked up in a prison. And in that prison, he knows nobody. Nobody knows who he is. He's shackled in sea prison, so he can't use his powers. And the only thing he has really is just his own will and strength to fight. That's where he meets the old man Hyogoro. And in Hyogoro, teaching him the new haki in Ryuo. So the only haki that was able to damage Kaido, he learns that. So and in order to learn Ryuo, he had to learn how to flow his haki in a different way. So his old way of fighting at that point was now obsolete. Him just using armament haki, going in there punching was no longer effective. He had to learn a different method, which still wasn't effective because he still loses again. He had to learn a different method of using haki, which ended up being the driving force to him learning how to beat Kaido. But he didn't beat Kaido just with that alone. It was in him dying from Kaido when the CP0 agent jumped in and held his fist and he caught that Thunder Bakua, and then he died. And we see the drums of liberation.
But that's also like a really good, because like it's the lion dies and then you see the sound wave from the drums of liberation. Yeah. But that you can also see it's not like you hear the drums and it's the beating of the drums, but that lines. What if they're not the sound waves, but they're actually the heartbeat of the child?
Yeah. Which, nah. That's actually really good because think about it. If anyone who saw that Gear 5 like scene, it started off flat. Like when
because also drums beat like the heart does.
Drums definitely do beat like the heart, and it started off flat. And every time those drums beat, we see it come back. Like, so the death of the lion officially at that point. Then we see,
and then the birth of the child.
Because of course, when you see that new, of course, flat line to now we see heart, that can be a rebirth. So, right there being the death of the lion going into the child, which is why Gear 5 is so ridiculous. Like, but this alone kind of it makes me accept why it's so ridiculous. Not the fact that I love Looney Tunes too, but like when I'm hearing this and saying like, oh, Luffy's going from that lion, that force of like freedom, that force of his dreams to go into a child who now it's not even force anymore. He's just, we're going to get it. Like children, they're nurtured. They get a lot of things that they want when they're a child. So Luffy being this child now, it's like, okay, now I'm finna get everything that I want. So in order, like, because even then, we're not supposed to beat the dragon. He's only supposed to struggle to get it. But in that struggle is where he learns to be the child, where he learns to now start going after what he wants.
It's not just, he learns that once the lion has torn out a place for his morals to go, that's all he's doing is he's just tearing out a hole in reality, air quotes, reality, for the child to nurture itself with the new morals and create a framework for the new morals. That's exactly how it works in Wano.
Because think about it, like when he comes out of Wano, before he goes into Wano, his wanted poster is still his face. Once he gets out of Wano, his wanted poster is now Gear 5. And since we've come out of that, everybody has asked him about his wanted poster because I feel like Gear 5 is that tear. It is that tear that's breeding into new morals. It is that tear that's showing in new things because a lot of people don't know. Like every time we've seen Gear 5, it's been newer things come out. Like when we first saw it, of course, we first seen it was the shock alone. Then now the next time we saw it now in the anime recently was him versus Lucci. And we see more new things come out. And the next time we'll see it again is when he fights Kizaru for that real fight.
And then, like, try not to get too deep into it, but an important thing for talking about the metaphor is he might not be the direct reincarnation, but he is something along the lines of a reincarnation of a sun god, which you can see the imagery with, like, I don't know if it was planned from the beginning, but it is. It makes you wonder when you rewatch the old episodes, or when the series first starts, how he'll start looking down with the hat and it will rise up like a sun. Mm-hmm. So it makes you wonder if it was planned.
And it makes me even think like a straw hat, like that like alone, because you couldn't have said any other hat. You couldn't have said a fedora.
Well, no, the thing is, a straw hat, it's the same color as the sun, but it looks like it has the corona like the sun also, with the red band.
Yep.
So it looks like it's like the sun and then the corona and then the rays. Like when you draw a sun, it fits perfectly. A straw hat, but since he's like a air quotes reincarnation, he's like the rebirth of a god. It makes sense for two reasons. It's Nietzsche said to be able to fully become the ubermensch, you would have to achieve a state like being a god, not be an actual god, but get to the realm of godhood to be able to have the ability to become the ubermensch and create the new moral system. You'd have to be able to approach godhood. And so if Luffy is the reincarnation of a god, he's approached godhood. And then the other part is Luffy would be the archetype of the self. Mm-hmm. And when you put the self into celestial bodies, the archetype of the self into celestial bodies, the self is the archetype of the sun. Which is another thing. It's just like, I don't know if Oda knew that, but like that, the archetype of the self is the sun. So
I'm telling all this stuff really points.
He's a big old loop. He's achieved near godhood. Like he's approached the realm of godhood, and then the god that he's approaching is the god of the sun. The sun is the archetype of the self. The self is the thing that would become the ubermensch, archetypally. Like it just, all squares point to Luffy. Like all ubermensch conversation. Like Nietzsche said that being the ubermensch is probably impossible for a human, but Oda might have found a loophole and made it a fictional human. Because according to Nietzsche, the closest person in human history to ever becoming the ubermensch was Napoleon. And so, because like he was the closest thing to tearing down the current value system of the day, like moral value system of the day and everything, but Luffy might be the closest person ever to actually achieving it. Like, it's so crazy. Luffy might be the key to helping people with nihilism in real life, which goes back to the title of the thing. Because the ubermensch is supposed to be the thing that helps pulls humanity out of its nihilistic tendencies. And the way that the metaphor's going that Oda gave us, that might be Luffy. Like I'm getting to the point where I wholeheartedly believe.
Me too, man. Because
that Luffy is Himothy.
Like Luffy real, because like all the stuff, like all of it, like points to it. Like just from me listening to like the prologue in the first few chapters, like when Nietzsche spoke and Zarathustra said a quote, said man must have chaos in order to give birth to a dancing star. All it did was just make me think about just all the chaos and stuff.
Also, like the sea is the bed of chaos in most mythologies. Mm-hmm. It's like the chaotic thing from which everything comes. So a sea of chaos, right? Sea of chaos gives birth to a dancing star. And Luffy, he's the literal reincarnation of the god of the sun that dances to drums of liberation.
Yeah, and it's like even with the dancing star reference, we're starting to see later in these things, like he's starting to use star in a lot of his attacks.
And he comes out of the sea because he's a pirate. Like it fits perfectly into the metaphor.
Oh yeah.
Like it just
being just a symbolism of all chaos and stuff in the world, and him being a pirate coming out, conquering that sea and coming out on top of it. Oh, I see it.
Oh, and then, like in other words, Nietzsche hoped that the new value system that the ubermensch creates would hold life at its core, and that's Luffy's like whole thing. It's that he holds freedom in the highest regard because he thinks people should be able to take life how they need to. Like, he believes in life unfettered by the shackles of oppression. Because that's what freedom is. It's the ability to live without somebody else interfering with your life. And that's what Luffy wants.
Wholeheartedly.
Well, not just like anything to affect your life. And that's 100% what Luffy's after.
And I think about it too, because one thing that was kind of a meme at this point was saying how just give Luffy some food and he'll liberate your whole country. When you think about food and its own thing, like food probably is a one thing that you could like literal look at as synonymous with life. So somebody giving Luffy food is almost like he looked at it as like, you cared enough to benefit my life, so let me change yours. Because we see in Wano, Tama gave him a bowl of rice, and he didn't think nothing of it until the red-nosed guy, I think it's Sukiyaki. Till Sukiyaki came and said, you know, when's the last time she ate? It's probably been days since she's had a bite to eat. No way she'd give you that rice. And then that changed the entire dynamic of Wano, because now it's like, she ain't eating. She a little girl and she ain't eating, so where's her life being preserved? And she chose to preserve Luffy's life by giving him her only rice, which we also found out that it was her birthday, why she got so much rice. So she in turn preserved Luffy's life, and Luffy just said, you know what, I'm gonna change your whole life. And it may look like it was a simple thing in the memes, but food, if someone gives you food, it's like they care about they care about your well-being. They care about you actually getting those nutrients and stuff that you need, which in Wano we saw they were definitely deprived of that. So yeah, that's a good metaphor when you think about it. Like, yeah, he gave him a little bit of rice, a little bit of food, but they cared enough to preserve his life, so he cared enough to really change theirs. Which really runs deep. Like, bro, we could really be here talking about this.
Here's another thing about the Celestial Dragon being the last man. Here's a quote from Nietzsche in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and it's Zarathustra talking about how detestable the last man is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, alas, the time is coming when men will no longer give birth to a star. Alas, the time of the most despicable man is coming. He will no longer be able to despise himself. Behold, I show you the last man. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? Thus asked the last man, and he blinks. And that goes with like when Luffy, the star, like not just of the show, but he's actually the reincarnation of a star. The last man the Celestial Dragons turn their nose up at him. They want nothing to do with him. They think he's low and pathetic and beneath them. But when we see, like, he's actually so much more than they can ever be. And that line about he no longer despises himself, they don't care enough about themselves to realize that there's something in them worth despising. That's how nihilistic they are. So they just see themselves as being great when they're actually, like, absolute, like, lowest rung piece of shit level.
Like, they see themselves as Kaido or Whitebeard, but really they ain't no better than Usopp.
Nah, bro, they make Usopp look like the sun god.
Alright, that's better.
Like, they put that mask on him and everything for him. Like,
yeah, I definitely take Soga King over a Celestial Dragon.
Like,
Sniper King.
And then there's the whole thing where the Celestial Dragons, I don't have proof, but they kind of remind me of 1930s and 1940s Japanese government. Because, like, their symbol is close to the Japanese flag. It's just the Japanese flag with an extra, like, what, four triangles on it?
Literally, you take the claws off the paw
and then
it's literally Japanese
you look
flag.
at Magellan. He's the head of a prison. I know he's not a Celestial Dragon, but he works for the Celestial Dragons. So it could be that the Celestial Dragons are a metaphor for the Empire of Japan in the 1930s and 40s, because there's a thing, I think it's called Unit 731. I can't remember exactly, but it's one of the most heinous war crimes in history. Like, it's almost as bad as the Holocaust. Like, it's fucking what they colonized parts of China, Korea, Vietnam, the Philippines, and they did absolutely insane experiments on people with diseases, and it is one of the worst things I've ever heard about in my life. Like, they would infect children with the disease and then dissect them live to see how it was destroying organs and stuff.
Ooh.
And that's how the celestial dragons are. Like, if there is a celestial dragon obsessed with science, that's 100% what they would do. And you can't tell me I'm wrong. That's 100% what they do. Because they give people like Vegapunk the okay to do shit like that. Like, it's clearly not as bad because you can't animate something that bad.
Yeah, nah,
and
I
people
believe
still
you,
watch it.
Because ever since, in the recent chapters, ever since Saturn came out talking about that sapphire disease, it always came back around. So what if they did the same thing with the white lead that fucked Law's life up? And we see that, like, they literally do like those heinous things like that just to see. Because think about it, like, in order for them to find out that it hurt, they had to at first figure out what hurt. And we see that with Saturn. We see that with how he kind of, messed with Bonnie and giving her those artificial devil fruit powers, which we'll get into that later. But him messing with that, him taking on like Jenny and stuff, like just messing with them like wholeheartedly, only for what they would say was for the development and furtherment of science, but we know it was for their own benefit.
But yeah, it's absolutely insane when you think about it like that. But what's it called? There's just so many things. And so for the next, what is it, 151 episode? How many episodes of One Piece are there right now? 1,100. So I guess we'll go 25 episodes, give or take at a time. We'll try to keep it more like less jumbled up than this year, because we were a little more over the place just because we wanted to make sure that we hit every little thing that we could, to make sure that it all got covered. But we were a little all over the place.
Yeah, just trying to get the idea out there, get y'all to understand like where we're coming from. So when we do this like chronologically or like at a time, it's like we've already laid out the foundation, so we can just go off the ideas and stuff.
This was mainly just to put forward our argument, and then every episode will be what we found in those handful of episodes that we watch. I think we're going to try to do 20 or 25 a week, give or take. And that way we can show what in those episodes prove our point.
Yeah, because this is 1,100 episodes of One Piece. Of course, these things aren't just one episode things. Like, this happens over the span of sagas, the span of arcs, like quarters. Like the first 300 or 400 episodes, probably like is maybe, this is just throwing it out, maybe just one of the metamorphosis or one of the ideas to go through. So it is very lengthy.
Another thing is that makes it seem so weird is that, I'm sorry to say this, but One Piece's pacing is not great.
We know.
I'd even argue to say it's not good. Actually, no. I will say One Piece's pacing, at least for the first 700 episodes, is not good. Now, the later 400, I'm not 100% caught up, so I can't tell you. But it is better than the previous 7.
I can tell you for one thing for sure, two things for certain. Boy, Egghead going like too fast. Like, I feel like that Oda heard or Toei heard that One Piece had bad pacing, and I swear to God, every time another episode drops, it's like, feels to me like 3 or 4 chapters. Like, I didn't think we'd be there that fast, but pacing was definitely an issue in the beginning, and I feel like it's gotten better in the last. Like, Wano probably, you can argue, was a little, like, they had some scenes in there that was extra, but
like, I wanted to go arc by arc, and it'll only take like 10 weeks, but realistically, we can't rewatch that much anime in a week because we have regular freaking jobs.
Yeah, we're not rich, y'all.
Yeah, so, but if this ends up taking off, we'll redo it completely, since we'll have the time to sit down with the notepad and take notes on each individual thing that happens.
Because I mean, come on, bro. This idea, this diving into One Piece and these animes and finding these connections is really interesting. Like I'm looking at like these are animes like Naruto that we did. Naruto was the first, like, and I see that totally different now after looking into Young's archetypes, and now we're on One Piece and I'm seeing Nietzsche's philosophy and I'm just like, wow, this really fits, and I'm looking at it in a whole new way, and also it's simultaneously like re-liking it over again with this idea in play, because you know, first time seeing, you probably wouldn't think, oh, this probably ain't got no extra substance in it that I can pull out, but no, man, it really does. This is some real substance to pull out of this, because
it's not just
if you really listen to the idea of the last man, I keep looking at our society today, like how we just need entertainment all the time in order to keep going and stuff, and most people can't put down their phones now, and it's just seeing this stuff. It's like really interesting. Like I would really love to continue doing this, especially for a job. So yeah, hopefully this stuff gonna take off. We can do this the right way, the good way. I won't say right way, I say good way. A better
the
way.
more right way than what we're doing now.
Yeah,
that's probably the more accurate way to say it. But yeah, and if anyone has any questions or anything, if we start getting questions, we'll do like a 15-minute thing at the beginning to where we answer people's questions,
yep.
I guess, and then like spend 30 minutes on the questions and then move on to what that episode's supposed to be about. So
exactly.
Next week's stuff will be about, I think we'll get to recruiting Sanji and Usopp, and we'll be stopped right before Arlong Park starts, I believe, if we do it the way that we plan on doing it.
Yeah, because we do 20 episodes, and Arlong Park starts at around 30-ish, 30 or 4, because I want to say it's around 30-ish, because I know Arlong Park was like really a high point for people who I was watching with, because that's where we get Nami's backstory and stuff, and Nami's backstory is one of the saddest ones in the beginning. Also,
there's a lot of good stuff for the metaphor in Arlong Park. Like you can see Arlong as the first meeting with the divine, because he's like he's an otherworldly figure.
Yes.
But like also, like, the divine doesn't necessarily mean that they're an angel. You could see it as like more demon-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, hell has angels too.
Yeah, at least one of them. But yeah, so hopefully we'll see you guys next week around the same time. Not exactly. We had to start a little early today. Because had some stuff to take care of this afternoon.
Family things.
But next week, starting close to the same time, and we're gonna be episode 2 of how One Piece is the antidote to nihilism.
Yep.
And so it's Corrupted
and Drago. Y'all run them comments up, man. Y'all let us know something. We really want to hear from y'all. This is one of those topics that get better with dialogue. So hey, we ready for y'all. Just let us know.
Yeah. So Ramen for the Soul signing off. Thanks again.